constantly say tennis is for everyone. We very much enjoy our relationship with the Positive Coaching Alliance. Trennis, thank you and for your efforts in putting this together for all of us to enjoy. Thank you, Mal and Otis, for sharing your time and giving us all the opportunity to hear and learn from you this afternoon. And we're excited about that. Our section president, Jackie Payne, is on this call as well. And so, Jackie, I'd like to introduce you and ask you to say a few words on our behalf as well.
Well, thank you, Van. And obviously, USTA is extremely excited about this opportunity to engage in these important conversations. We really appreciate the Positive Coaching Alliance for their partnership. I particularly want to acknowledge Trennis and Otis, who are members of USTA Texas's recently formed African American Engagement Project team. We appreciate the work that they've done already in this new term that just started the 1st of January. And we hope to continue engaging and relying on them to help us lead these conversations. So a shout out to both of you, and we look forward to the discussions. So again, thank you. It's a privilege to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you both for being here. And so without further ado, I want to jump right into it and introduce our panelists. So starting with Mr. Otis Sadler. Otis in 1998 became the University of Texas's first Black tennis athlete, graduating with a bachelor's in business in 1992, excuse me. He has served in lots of different roles in youth tennis, specifically working for the Zena Garrison Tennis Academy, being a coach for USTA Texas, a national coach, and right now he serves with the director of tennis as the director of tennis at the Lakeside Country Club in Houston, Texas. So Otis, thank you for being here. Next on, moving to Malavia. Mal, he questioned whether or not I could say his government name right.
You
when
hesitated.
The lights were on. So I did a little bit, but sometimes it's important to just go ahead and run through the gate. So Malavia Washington, AKA Mal. Mal played at the University of Michigan. He turned pro in 1988. He won 4 ATP titles while he was a professional for about 10 years. He earned his highest singles ranking at 11 when he was playing, obviously, world ranking. He obviously reached the Wimbledon final in 1996. He's the last Black man to do so. And most importantly, I guess to me, he was awarded and was the winner of the Arthur Ashe Humanitarian of the Year award in 2009 through the work that he has been doing with his Malavia Washington Youth Foundation. So these are two gentlemen that both have achieved historical precedent and have been able to compete at the highest level, but they're also willing to give back and serve their communities. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the first question. First question will be for Mal, and we're just going to let this thing flow. 3 topics that we're going to discuss for everybody to understand today will be, number 1, the power of sport, why sports are so important, how sports can be a conduit and a uniting opportunity and tool for all of us. Secondly, the historical motivation and the historical precedent that both of these men have been able to achieve. And lastly, how do we develop a sticky culture? And we use the term sticky intentionally, something that keeps people connected to the game, keeps people coming back to the courts, keeps people connected to the community and to the culture that we're trying to create. So the first question around the power of sport, Mal, if you don't mind, how did participating in athletics allow you to develop into the man that you are today?
Well, Otis, first let me, Otis, it's nice to be on with you and Trennis. Let me just say, I appreciate the invitation. Thanks to Van, thanks to Jackie for allowing me to be here. But how did tennis put me in the position to where I am today, or into the man I am today? I'm a believer that sports, period, but certainly tennis is one of those things that should be in the life of every kid. I think there's so much value to be gained from the sport of tennis. The value of hard work and sportsmanship and learning to be confident in yourself when you're out there on the court by yourself, or learning to play together with teammates, whether it's your high school team or, for me, at the University of Michigan, or playing Davis Cup. I mean, the things that I was able to get from the sport of tennis from the time of 5 years old well into adulthood are the things that are benefiting literally today in my life at 51 years old, are benefiting me today. And I give a lot of credit to my parents and everything that they instilled in me. I was really one of the only kids in my area, certainly the only Black kid, but amongst all of my friends, I was really the only kid playing tennis. But I didn't mind that. I mean, that was one of the things I loved about it. I didn't mind being the only one out there playing tennis, and that has served me well, because in so many arenas, in my youth foundation, in business, in sports, and tennis being on the tour, I was, quote unquote, the only one, or one of the few out there. And honestly, over time, I felt very comfortable in that position. I didn't mind that position. I embraced that position. So literally the sport of tennis has served me very, very well, and will be serving me for the rest of the rest of my life. I mean, I literally don't know where I would be or what I would be doing if tennis hadn't come into my life and literally taught me and brought me everything I have to this day. That's how important and influential I look at the game of tennis on my life.
Thank you for that, Mal. Otis, what has it done for you?
Well, it's done a lot of things, but first I'd like to say thanks for being on the call with Mal, because I know I'm the B team, but the B team's coming strong off the bench. Tennis has done a lot of things for me. I was introduced to tennis from my parents. As a matter of fact, my parents had an interest in tennis, and it was when Arthur Ashe played Jimmy Connors in the finals of Wimbledon 1. My parents went to Kmart, got a couple of rackets, and went out to Mountain View College in Dallas, Texas, and went out on the courts and started hitting balls based on that. I was into football and soccer at that time. I thought tennis was like kind of boring, and it looked easy. And so obviously it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. And I actually got competitively started in tennis about 11 years old. And what I like about tennis, kind of like what Mal said, is, to me, tennis is analogous to life. You are out there by yourself. There's no one else out there to help you. There's the people out there to help you when you train, but still, it's got to be you got to want it. And much like life, you have to make decisions, and you have to suffer the consequences of those decisions instantly. And you also have to get over those when you make a bad decision. You got to learn how to deal with it right there on the fly, just like you do in life. And much like life, thank goodness we're given second, third, fourth, fifth, and 800th opportunities to correct it. You can miss 8, 9 balls in one game and still theoretically be in the game of tennis, much like life. And you learn to depend on yourself, make decisions, and then you have to stand up to them and deal with the consequences. So it is a life teacher. And much like Mal, I was only in the state of Texas from 12s to 18s. I was one of like 2 or 3. And when I first started playing tennis, my friends razzed me, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? You playing tennis?" And then when I got pretty good, then it became cool. Hey, yeah, Otis is my buddy. He plays tennis, man. He's good. Y'all check him out. So it progressed. It did progress. Mal, you know John Wilkerson, and in the summers I used to go down and train with John and Lori, and John. I was like, "John, all my friends, man, they're making fun of me." He goes, "What are they doing?" I said, "They're playing football. They're playing basketball." He goes, "They're playing a sport with a bunch of other sweaty, smelly guys. You're playing a sport where you get to be around beautiful women all day. Even if you lose, you're around pretty young ladies." He goes, "To me, sounds like you're winning." So you know what? I took that to heart and made fun of my friends, and it's paid off. And it's the people I've met, the connections I've made through the sport of tennis have helped put me where I am today, and have also formed in friendships that I still cherish to this day.
If I could just add to something Otis just said, which I think is so important. When so often in tennis, you're out there by yourself on the court, and it's up to you to win or lose. And when I lost, I had to take responsibility for that loss. I couldn't put it on a coach. I couldn't put it on teammates who did something or didn't do something. And in my life today, long after my tennis playing days have been over, I still carry that same attitude. In my business and in my life, it's completely up to me. I take full and 100% responsibility for the success of my business, the success of my life. And I have that approach with my two kids. My kids are my responsibility. And if they're lacking somewhere, I'm asking myself, okay, what did I not do? So that's one more thing that Otis pointed out that has really helped me and shaped me over the years.
To get even deeper into that, right? Self-confidence is an important thing to have. And so if you guys don't mind talking about your development of your own self-confidence to make sure that one bad serve didn't turn into one bad set, it didn't turn into one bad match or a bad tournament, right? So how do you have that confidence to allow yourself the grace to make that mistake, but not let that mistake affect, the rest of your experience?
Well, I would say if you're a tennis player, at some point you let that bad serve or that one bad game derail you for the entire match. It has happened where you had a bad call and you couldn't get over it. We've seen the pros do that. I think back not long ago to a match at the US Open with Serena. She thought she was wronged and she could not get over that wrong. Okay, so it happens. To all of us, but I always go back to my parents. And my dad had this attitude, and he's the one who taught me how to play from 5 years old, and all the way through high school and college, and even on the tour, he was my coach at times. But he had this supreme confidence, and his confidence came from his work ethic. He felt like I don't care how talented you are, I don't care how gifted you are, my work ethic will trump you every single time. And that was the case. So when it came to me and my tennis career, I had no problem working my butt off. And I knew that alone was going to get me ahead of so many other individuals. And he was also one of those guys when it came to off-court training. He said you should never lose a match because you run out of gas. Right. And so I walked out on the court with players. I knew I was in shape and they knew I was in shape. And that was an edge that I had before we even played the first point. So that confidence really came from my ability to really put in the time and the effort. And that has really served me well, because I have this belief in me right now that if I want to accomplish something, I just have to put in the time. And I'll finish with this. The time and effort that you put into it, you will never regret it. You may or may not reach all of your goals, but you'll never regret the time and effort that you put into the pursuit of a goal or a task.
Otis, speak to that. Speak to the importance.
I agree. I have a saying that you get in there and the work you put in adds to your confidence. It adds to it. When you're out on that court and no one else is around, that's when you're getting better. When you get up at 4:30 in the morning to take care of business, whether it's on the tennis court or in another professional business endeavor, those extra hours, the extra work you put in, puts you in a position to be ahead of someone else. And when I had to learn that when you know that you've given 100% of what you had, you gave everything you had that day. You're not always going to win. I coach kids and, well, I tried as hard as I could. You're supposed to try as hard as you could. Just because you tried as hard as you could doesn't mean you're going to win. But that means you did all you could do that day and you won. You won. My mother was a very big proponent of, you're going to carry yourself a certain way when you're out there. You're going to do the best you can do. You're going to be a gentleman. You're not going to act like a butt on the tennis court, because then you embarrass me and I will embarrass you. And You're going to walk off that court. You're going to shake that young man's hand. You're going to hold your head up high and you're going to walk off that court, because today you did all you can do. That's all anyone can ask of you or demand of you. And you won. I have a thing I said, quitting's easy. The easiest thing in the world to do is to quit. But it's also one of the most habit forming things. And if you will quit on a tennis court in a match at 12 and unders at Kalamazoo or at 14s at your local club, it's going to start becoming a habit. You don't quit. You try from start to finish. Like Mal said, we've had all days, we've gone scuba a couple times and we're in the match and you're like, oh, you know what? Lunch is going to be real good real soon right now, and I need to get out of here. And that does happen. But you have to learn to get over it. I like to say, you use your emotions, don't be emotional. I have kids that, well, why can't you can get mad, but you turn it into a positive. Instead of saying my backhand's terrible, I can't hit a backhand, let's go, you know what? I'm not missing another backhand. For the next game, I'm making every backhand I have. So you're using your anger, but you're turning it around into something positive. Use your emotions, don't be emotional.
Love it. And if people listen to that one thing you said about how quitting is easy, but you have to keep coming back. I think that right there was awesome what you said. And I'll add, you have to be willing to fail.
Yes.
But be willing to fail. But when you fail, be willing to come back and ask for more. Let me try one more time. And if, when you keep coming back one more time, and one more time again, that alone is going to help build your confidence. So, but believe it or not, success isn't the only thing that can help build your confidence. To me, just through that failure and through your ability to keep coming back over and over again will help you build your confidence.
That's something that all of us can learn from, myself included, right? So I think it's important to make sure that we're putting in the effort and knowing that that's all we have, and the rest of it is out of our control. But we can make sure that we control the stuff that we do have. Moving into a different topic, just the historical nature of both of your presence here, but certainly what you've been able to achieve. One of the first questions I have around just what the work that you did, when it became obvious, right, that the storyline around your success and your presence was, the melanin in your skin, how did you react to those things? What were the things that you did internally or externally, to handle that added pressure?
To me, it was definitely an added pressure. And I don't know that necessarily in junior tennis, I necessarily felt that pressure. But certainly when I got on tour, when I got to the pro level and I was one of the few Black players out there, there was absolutely an added level of pressure. If I was at a tournament, virtually every Black person who was on site as a fan there was a good chance they were going to be at my match. And I knew I had a lot of support. But with that said, it's also added pressure. And I think one of the things I tried to focus on was just what was going on inside the lines. Because if I'm focused on, every external thing, if I'm focused on, okay, if I win this match, how many points am I going to get? How much prize money am I going to win? If I'm focused on, how much attention I'm going to get with this win, my mind isn't on my strategy in this match. So I had to figure out a way to kind of block out a lot of the external and just focus on, this is my game plan and this is what I have to stick to. And one of the things I did that helped me with that, I literally would write down notes and had notes on the changeover that I would read, because that helped me stay focused on what I was doing, because there's so many distractions when you're out there that you can kind of get wrapped up in. And I have a lot of appreciation for those players who can succeed at the highest level under immense pressure and still play really good ball. That's one thing you're always trying to figure out. There's a lot of pressure, and how can I perform at a high level? And so certainly I was able to, play at a pretty high level, but I wasn't playing consistently at a high level as some of my peers, which to this day still ticks me off. I was trying to figure out how to do that over and over and over again. And I did it to a degree, way better than a lot of people, but not as good as some.
Otis.
I actually, while I was in it at first, especially when I was younger, it didn't really faze me that much. That I'd look around and be like, oh, there's no one else black in this tournament, but okay, no big deal. I'm going to go play tournament. I'm going to go play the tournament, play the best I can, and see what I can do. And part of that is I'm an only child. I'm a lonely only. So I'm used to being by myself. I'm used to being the only one. Another huge part is my parents and the foundation they provided for me. My father was a little hot-tempered, all go-getter, hit the ball as hard as you can, win the point, intimidate your opponent. And my mom was like, you're going to try as hard as you can. You're going to be a nice young man. You are representing us. You're not. And one of the things my mother always said, she goes, look, she was always aware. My mother was his teacher for over 20 years. She goes, if you look around, you are one of the only one or two other black people in this tournament. She goes, you stand out. What you do stands out. How you act on the court stands out. If you act like an idiot, which some of the other kids are doing, it's going to be different than if they do. Some people are going to say, oh, well, that's why he doesn't belong here. And my mom was like, no, we belong wherever we are, and we're going to make our place, but we're also going to carry ourselves in a certain way, in a certain demeanor. And so that was instilled in me at a very young age, because my mother told me, I will pull you off the tennis court anywhere, anytime, if you start acting like an idiot. And she goes, because if you embarrass me, I will embarrass you right when it happens. And I promise you, I can act a bigger fool than you can. And she wasn't playing. So
I might use that one day. I'm going to tell my kids, you embarrass me, I'm going to embarrass you. I might use that one.
Yeah. Hey, and it was not, we're not waiting until we get home. We're not waiting until we get in the car. She goes, wherever you act that way, I'm going to act that way with you. And we'll act that way together. And then we'll leave. And then it's going to get worse when you get home. But like I said, I never really paid that much attention to it, but until later on in life. I mean, when I played at Texas, I never really paid that much attention. I'm like, I looked at the wall, all the pictures. I'm like, wow, it's 1988. And I'm the first black person on that whole wall. And I thought it was kind of cool, but I didn't really think it was that big of a deal to me, because it was what I trained to do. It was what I wanted to do. And it's what I expected of myself, because from a very young age, that was instilled in me. If you want to go, if you want to do something, you do it. You do it to the best of your ability. You put in the work, and then you look for the results. My father's like, if you don't put in the work, don't come crying to me about something didn't happen. He goes, did you practice today? How long did you practice today? Were you serious? Did you train? Because my dad he laid the groundwork, but he left a lot of it up to me, because he goes, because I can't want it for you worse than you want it for yourself. And that's in anything. My grandfather used to tell me, I don't care, son, if you be a ditch digger. You be the best ditch digger you can be. Whatever you do, if you're going to do it, you give it everything you have. I have a saying I tell my kids all the time. There are two things in the world you can control every single day: your attitude and your effort. The effort you put forth, you control. The attitude that you bring into any situation, you can control. You can't control if you feel good, you feel bad, someone's bad mood. But the two things you always will and can control are your attitude and the effort you put forth in anything you do. So
that's powerful stuff. Yeah, no, we're I think that sometimes it's difficult we see someone's behavior, a child's behavior, and we associate it with that kid being bad or mad or whatever, but there's potentially other things that are happening psychologically or just through the culture that potentially is causing more stress on that kid. And so the question I have for you all is, that added pressure that you had, right, that your parents put on you, said, hey, look, if you're out here acting crazy, it means more than say what your friends do. So how did you balance, the power or the added pressure that you had to perform and to not make a mistake, versus, putting, having some level of culpability for those that have kind of put you there in the first place, the people that are manifesting levels of discrimination and creating an atmosphere to where it is just one Mal and it is just one Otis at that tournament. So how did you balance both the, doing it yourself, having enough, stick-to-itiveness and energy for yourself to make sure that you battle through that versus shifting some level of culpability to those that are in charge of the culture that you're having to compete within?
Well, it's funny because I'm listening to Otis talk, and I think I could have grown up in his household and heard the exact same thing in my own household. I mean, the digging ditches, man, how many times did I hear that?
Yep.
But with my parents, and especially my dad, because he's the one who taught me how to play, there was a level of expectation in behavior that he expected from me. And he didn't play. Okay, anyone who knows my dad knows he didn't play. So I didn't have the luxury like some of my junior fellow junior players in tournaments who were acting a fool. I didn't have that luxury. Okay. Number one, he wouldn't allow it. And really that wasn't, as a young Black boy and a young Black family in this tournament, that is not how we represent ourselves. Okay, so he did not allow that at all. But what I would say is there's discrimination everywhere. There's problems everywhere. I mean, life is difficult. Okay, life is tough. And let's say if you could eliminate discrimination today, guess what? Tomorrow there would be other problems that we have to deal with. And that's just the reality of it. But that's where I think taking on, being self-reliant and responsible for your own actions and responsible for your success, that's where I think that comes in. I think too often we love to put our lack of success and our failures on because of this, because of discrimination, because of this kid who did this, or because of this problem, or I got fired because of this, as opposed to looking in the mirror and saying, okay, life is what it is. What could I have done differently? How can I be better? How can I be stronger? How can I prepare myself better for this job, for this interview, for this next match, for this tournament? So, life and discrimination and unfairness and getting screwed in life, that's a reality. Okay, that is going to happen, but I don't have to let that, be every day a defining moment in my life. I'm taking responsibility and saying, despite everything that's going on, I am going to be successful because I am going to work my butt off. And I really don't care what you do or what you think about me. That's not going to determine my success. And that's really been my approach my entire life.
Otis.
Like Mal said, we could have switched back and forth. It'd have been all right, depending on who was who. Because when our father was in a good mood, his temper was about that long. His tolerance for disrespect, how you carry yourself, and how you do things. And it was instilled in me from such an early age that my father back in the day was a Black Panther. So it was there. He understood. My father was also got a full ride to the University of Texas. Part of why I went to Texas, my mother and father both graduated there. My mother got a track and academic and a athletic scholarship, played volleyball for Texas back in 1960 something. And my father got a full academic ride. My father was a very smart man, started attending medical school, studied under Dr. DeBakey, the famous heart surgeon. And my father also liked to shoot pool. Got caught one night coming home with several $100s. A young lady said that a Black man had held up a convenience store. Police officer found him walking. Where you have the money? I'm coming from this. In the back of a police car, he's brought to the actual store. Yeah, that was him. And fortunately, my father was a year and a half, not fortunately, but he was a year and a half into medical school studying under Dr. DeBakey. our life got turned upside down for 16 months until they found the guy that did it and got a full pardon. My father has every right to be mad at the system, mad at what happened to him, mad at what derailed what could have been another career. He said, took 16 months away from my life, 16 months away from me and your mother. I could sit here and cry about that. I can understand that you can be innocent, convicted, and sentenced to prison when you didn't do anything. Or I can get up off my butt and work hard. I don't have any reason to complain. I don't have any right to sit there, like Mal said. It is what it is. Now, I don't ignore it, and it is a fact of life. It's a fact of life. If I see lights go on behind me, my father told me, put both hands up there as yes or no, sir. Thank you for the ticket you are giving me, and if you want to give me another one, give me another one. He goes, we can fight that in court. We're not fighting that on the side of the road. There are things I expect from you, and I'm going to expect a lot from you, probably more than other people will, so that you get used to that, so that you don't get used to just getting by. In high school, my dad picked me up from school one day. Where are your books? Oh, I did all my homework. He goes, you made a B last 6 weeks, didn't you? Yeah, but it was an honors English. Go inside. You're going to bring every single book you have home every day. The only time you can't bring a book home is when you make straight A's. I didn't make another B the rest of high school. That was my first 6 weeks freshman year in high school. I didn't want to take home all the books, but he wasn't playing. If you put, I feel, if you put from a very early age, you expect a lot and you enforce what is expected, it makes you work. And you don't tolerate and let things slide. Oh, it's okay. You know, you made a B, and a B is good. And depending on the class, a B might be the only thing you can make, but you're going to work your butt off and make the highest B you can make. And so it didn't matter what others expected of me or from me. From an early age, I expect Otis Sadler Jr., Dimple Sadler, we expect this from our son. And as long as you're staying here in this house, that's what we're going to get. And so, you know what? I was not hidden from the facts. I was told about my father when I was a very young man. And he said, this is why, even when you're doing things right, something wrong can happen, but you do everything you can to do it the right way. And it might come short, just like Mal said, hey, you can try really, really hard, work really hard, still lose. But you got tomorrow to get up and go face a new day. And you start all over. You pick yourself up. Not to say you shouldn't be hurt or upset, but suck it up, Buttercup. It's time to go. Get up and let's start all over again.
No, that is great. And to add to that, you know what? Young people will rise to the level of the bar that you set for them. And if the bar is low, and in my opinion, for a lot of young people, the bar is too low. The expectations are too low. And when they screw up, you know what? As opposed to putting that responsibility on that kid, I see it in my own youth foundation. You know what? That parent oftentimes, it must have been the teacher's fault. Must have been someone else's fault. You know what? It was the police officer did this to my. No, put the blame right where the blame is supposed to be. But you know, there is injustice everywhere, and I will forever go back to what can I have done differently. I'm not putting the blame on anyone else. Where could I have done better? And it just comes from my upbringing, you know, from my parents, and kind of like you're talking. My parents were born in the 1930s. Grew up in the 40s and 50s in Mississippi. Okay, so they saw their share of discrimination and racism, and they were a part of the Great Migration, leaving Mississippi, going to, you know, Illinois, then New York, then Michigan. And are you going to use that as a lifelong crutch, or are you going to use the problems that you faced in Mississippi to spur you on to success? So both of them, I mean, with grandparents that none of my grandparents ever graduated from high school, but both of my parents, my dad, a master's degree, my mom, a bachelor's degree, and, you know, worked their butts off, you know, for forever, because they raised the bar, and that standard that they set, that their parents set, my grandparents and my great grandparents, the bar that they set is the bar that they set for me, and that's the bar I'm trying to set for my two.
Amen. Transitioning to
Trent, one
please.
thing.
Yes.
To piggyback on what Mal said, a couple of things. One, and when I was a program director at Xena, we'd go into 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, Houston, Texas, schools of last resort, and we'd see things. My mother told me a long time ago, she goes, if a teacher calls home about you, I'm believing that teacher. I'm not believing you. But nowadays, too many times, oh, my son said, yeah, your son had got in trouble and he's guilty and he's trying to find a way out to blame us. My mother told me, she goes, look, the teacher's job is not to like you. Her job or his job is to teach you. And your job is to shut up and learn. And that's all there is to it. And in everything, no matter how simple, how complicated, all someone can ask you to do is give your best. But dadgummit, they need to hold your foot to the fire and make you give your best, not a half-ass effort. Too many times we are giving half-ass efforts just so we can say, oh, I tried. They didn't give me a chance. Yeah. You try, you fail, you try again. You try harder the next time. And you keep trying. As long as you're able to, you keep trying.
So transitioning into how do we create an environment that there's more Mals and more Otises, or at least kids that are having an opportunity to learn from people like you, right? So just my first question is, how do we get more young, diverse men playing tennis? It appears that the women have not figured it out, but they are further along in their process of diversifying the game than the men's side is. And so what do you feel like is happening on the women's side of tennis that isn't currently happening on the men's side of tennis that we need to potentially do a better job at?
I would say if you take a group of just random 100 or 1,000 Black boys in America, doesn't matter the city or state, football and basketball are king. Okay, that's been the case for the last 25 years. It's going to be the case for the next 25 years. And so those are the two, especially. Certainly there's other sports, whether it's, I don't know, baseball or track and field or whatever, but football and basketball are king. And I can speak to Jacksonville, Florida, where my youth foundation is. Football and basketball are king. That is what they tend to gravitate to, not necessarily tennis. Otis said it, man, why are you playing tennis? You don't want to play tennis. We don't play tennis. They don't play tennis in Jacksonville. They don't play tennis in the inner city. So I've heard that. Our kids have heard that. And so there is a level of peer pressure. Whereas, they're in the football and basketball, those are huge money making opportunities for young boys. You take girls, is there another sport, or what is the greatest money making opportunity in sport for girls? I would argue it's tennis. Certainly there's the WNBA, but there's soccer certainly, but I don't know. I mean, the highest grossing female athletes in the world are tennis players, and over the last number of years, I think it's been Serena. Okay, no one's making more than Serena, or maybe Naomi Osaka.
Naomi now.
So I think those are big factors right there. But as time goes on, and when I say time goes on, years and years and decades go on, you'll get more and more players. The funny thing is I see pockets of players either here in Jacksonville or even in my own extended family where they love the sport of tennis. Okay. And I'm thinking like, where is this love like throughout the country? And unfortunately there are pockets where we don't play tennis here. So outside of my youth foundation, when just looking at the Black community, there's not a ton of tennis in Jacksonville, Florida that kids are playing. I mean, if they're playing tennis and they're in inner city Jacksonville, it's because they're at my youth foundation. So I think, developing tennis at a grassroots level is huge. But just like every other sport is challenged with, getting kids to play beyond 3 or 4 years. There's that mark of about 3 or 4 years where the interest level dies off and kids get a little diverted. I don't want to do this anymore. So when you get past that 3 or 4 years and they can start seeing beyond high school tennis and maybe into college tennis, that's big. But it's very difficult. It's difficult to get them in the sport, but then keeping them in the sport. And then at some point, there is going to be, a significant cost involved with letting those kids play at a high level. So, all those factors, you find yourself in 2021 with the numbers in tennis that we see.
Why do you feel like having, and this is for both of you, having a diverse culture? Obviously, I feel like it's an obvious answer, but maybe just to hear your words on it. Why is having diversity, everybody, benefiting the entire group, not just that group that now is joining? Why is diversity such a powerful tool for everyone that's involved?
I feel because diversity represents the world we live in, the life, the interchanges that we go through every day. And even if, no matter where you live in your neighborhood, very few people work or live in just one area. You travel, you go to different areas. And the more you see and interact with different people, it brings you an opportunity to learn and to educate and to be educated if you're open-minded about it. And tracking back a little bit real quick, I'm sorry, but I didn't, a way to attract, maintaining Black youth, especially boys, man, like you were talking earlier, Trennis, it's like Mal said, the USTA will love this. We'll go back to the schools program days. The way you find them is where you have to go where they are. Kids are in school. The schools program is one of the best things the USTA ever did. Going into schools, in the PE classes, introducing tennis, and following that up with something at a local park or rec center by there. Once you do get good, like Mal said, it becomes expensive. It is. And so you're going to drop off. And as you get older too, you decide to migrate towards different things. I'm an only child. Tennis by myself. I'm used to being by myself. It was a natural fit for me. But most kids like to be in sports that are in groups and teams and the camaraderie. Bringing them together is exposing it to more kids, getting 3 or 4 together that like each other, and it shows that there's something they can do. And even if it doesn't translate in a lot of Black kids playing now, tennis is a sport of a lifetime. So if we introduce it to them at an early age, we make it fun. We don't get bogged down and use a continental grip on the serve and the Eastern forehand grip on the forehand, the semi-Western on a high forehand, whatever, and you just make it fun. You make it fun. You teach it, you make it fun. Then when they want to get better, then they come and ask you to learn. Hey, Mal, how do I hit that forehand again? Well, you got them. When a kid comes to you and asks how to do something better, they have a genuine interest. They want to get better. So as far as exposing more and making it a sticky culture, it's got to be a big net. It's a law of large numbers, because after a certain point, it becomes a law of financial. To travel to tournaments, to get rackets, to get coaching, to pay for training. That is a very expensive endeavor, but it's not expensive to introduce tennis to the Black culture in a grassroots level, where you can go to Academy and buy a $25 racket, like my parents did, but it was Kmart, a can of balls, and you go to the local community college and you hit against a wall. While you're there, you see somebody else, hey, you want to hit? And then you started something. But it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be easy, especially getting, like you said, young Black men involved in tennis and sticking to tennis and not going somewhere else that's cooler, that my friends are doing. My friends and I can go play basketball. I tell them all the time, you can't go play basketball by yourself. You can shoot, but you can do that on a tennis court. You just need 2 people for tennis. The kids are, I want to play football. You really going to get that many people to play a game of football? You need 2 for tennis. One if you got a wall.
I have a personal example of how difficult it is to keep kids in the sport. My 2 kids don't play tennis. How crazy is that? I don't know. Go figure, man. Maybe I could teach them a little something about tennis. No, my son plays football. He played lacrosse for a bunch of years, and now he's in college and he plays football. My daughter is in high school playing volleyball. But you know what they really liked about the sports? They were with their friends.
Exactly.
That pressure. He plays football because a bunch of his teammates or his friends were on the team. Noah, man, you're fast, you're athletic. You should come and play football. Guess what he did? And same with my daughter. Football. And they both played softball and baseball. They liked being around team. None of their friends were really playing tennis, so they didn't play. But I love, you mentioned diversity, Trennis. I love diversity in sports and communities and schools. I'm a big fan of diversity, and I think the more diverse any endeavor is, you're just opening up your chances and growing your chances for success. I mean, if I'm looking for the best player, the best tennis player, well, I can look just in Jacksonville, but if I expand that and look in Florida, I'm going to get a better player. If I expand that and look in the Southeast, or expand it even further and look throughout the country, then I'm opening myself up to get the best player. I feel like it's the same with diversity. If you're opening up your sport or your activity, whatever it might be, to a diverse group of people, you are giving yourself the best chance to get the best talent.
To set that group, right? How do we create an opportunity to have those groups of friends decide that they wanted to play tennis as opposed to basketball and football, right? So I hear you, and I believe my personal being believes in the personal responsibility aspect of making sure that you can control what you control. However, we all know that we don't control all of it. And there are people that want to support and to help develop this into a better place. And so for those that are listening, that are allies, where would you ask that they put their energy to create a culture around tennis? That less and less people can start to say, well, y'all don't do that, y'all don't play that. Yes, we do. Your friends don't play that. Yes, they do. Where would you ask those allies that want to develop that culture put their energy to make sure that they're pulling their weight to make sure that things progress and get better?
I would say support, here in Jacksonville or in Houston, support grassroots programs. Support those programs where I say the rubber hits the road. And that's what we do with my youth foundation. We're trying to go into a community and attract that player who outside of the foundation would never be exposed to tennis. But I also tell people, support, the USTA Florida Section Foundation. You support the USTA Foundation because they support those grassroots programs throughout the country. Okay. And those grassroots programs, more so than any other programs I have seen, are getting a diverse group of players involved in the sport. So like most things, progress never comes as fast as you want. And we want, everyone wants, okay, what's the one thing we can do to improve things dramatically over the next 12 months? Well, guess what? It's a slow process. This process will be going on for years and years to come, as we continue to make it more diverse, to grow the base of players, or grow the base of young Black players. And I'll add this. It's difficult to create a champion tennis player. Okay, it's like, I remember Taylor Dent told me once, like, trying to create a Grand Slam champion, it's like catching lightning in a bottle. Okay. It's so difficult, evidenced by what's going on in American tennis right now, especially on the men's side. Andy Roddick was the last American man to win a Grand Slam title. And I know the USTA and individuals and players are spending a lot of money trying to create, Grand Slam champions. We're the United States of America. Making the quarterfinals of Grand Slam isn't good enough. Making the semifinals isn't good. We want Grand Slam champions. And it's so difficult that we haven't been able to do it on the men's side since 2003. That's how difficult it is. So it's not about, it's a long process, but it's a methodical process. And unfortunately, you don't have the success ever as fast as you want it.
So patience is what you're saying.
Yeah, patience. What are your thoughts, Otis?
Patience and perseverance. Patience and perseverance. And Mal's right. You grassroots programs, but grassroots programs targeting the areas you're looking for. In our area, specifically Black communities, going into specific Black communities, offering tennis, introducing the sport and the game of a lifetime, tennis. But it's us going out to them and offering it to them. It's kind of like the shotgun approach. You're going to offer a lot. Like Mal said, you're going to get one or two, but you don't stop it just because you got one or two. You know what you do? You get somebody there that's going to work with those one or two. And if those one or two blossom, those one or two have friends. Those one or two have family. Those one or two know people. And once they actually see that one, hey, they're pretty good and they're having a good time, I'm going to try it. And it's just like Mal said, it's not going to go fast. It's not going to go fast, but it's going to grow. Having the perseverance to do it and to stick to it is important. The USTA, the ATA. And to sit there and sometimes they think like it's shoveling good money after bad, but it will pave the way. We have to have patience. We have to have people that have the time, the energy, and the focus to put it in and offer it to communities and to follow up. Not to do hey, we're going to come do a 3-week program. Okay, we did a 3-week program. God, we're going to go to the other side of town and we're never going to come back to this side of town. It has to be all encompassing, all working together and trying to go to the same general goal. It doesn't have to be the same specific goal. My goal might be, I want to create a superstar. Maybe not a Grand Slam champion, but a kid that's going to go to college, which is not a bad thing to get their education paid for. And do this. Mal's group is like, you know what? I'm going to introduce 200 kids this year to the sport of tennis. And I'm going to follow them. I'm going to get them to come once a week, every week. And if they want more, we offer them. But so you can go different ways, but as long as you're working toward the same end goal, getting more people of color introduced to our wonderful sport. And that might be not as tennis players, but you know what? That little girl I worked with, her dad's a nice guy. He has this, he has friends. Hey, bring your friends to watch your daughter play. Introduce them. Open up doors that you didn't even know would be there just on the people you know.
Go ahead now.
That's good stuff right there. But I would say we're talking about introducing players to the sport to try to develop players. And remember, even if these individuals don't go on and play college tennis or high school tennis, we're also developing young men and women. We're developing character through the sport of tennis. Majority of them are not going to play in college. The majority of them are not going to play pro. But every time they're out on the tennis court, like I was out on the tennis court at my foundation, was it yesterday or maybe 2 days ago? Okay, with a small group of kids, that interaction, that one-on-one interaction is developing their character. And ultimately, don't we want quality young men and women who are contributing positively to their communities? That's really what we want. And if they turn out to be great tennis players,
that's a bonus.
As we draw this to a close, I wanted to mention to all of whom have been listening to you all, especially talk about your fathers and the expectation that they had for you. You guys didn't mention one time, did you lose, right? That their reaction, their visceral reaction, both moms and dads, wasn't about as much the losing, it was about your behavior and how you engaged and whether or not you put forth that effort. Now, they would be disappointed for sure if you lost, but only through a lack of effort, right? And I think that's certainly around Positive Coaching Alliance. That's what our hope is, for people to be conscious of those things, whether it be that, your kid is nationally ranked or your kid just wants to learn the game. The pressure that you put on them needs to be around the effort, not about, the results. And so as I draw this to a close, you guys are both committed to your communities and specifically giving back. If you had to describe or use one adjective of a great coach, of what the coach that you would want to engage and to support and to nourish a young man or woman, what would that adjective be? What would you want to describe those folks with as?
For me, I think a coach who is going, I'd say two things. A coach who is going to set the example themselves with their own behavior. And then also a coach who pushes and strives those individuals to work hard in no matter what it is they do. If you work on your character and set an example for your brothers and sisters and friends and community, and you're willing to work your butt off, your success, your future success is unlimited. I mean, you write out what you want your success to be. And if you're willing to put in the time and effort, that is what I was taught, and that is what I teach. You put in the time of effort, you're going to be amazed at what you're able to achieve. And my dad just put it simple. If you want to achieve something, just work at it. And if you didn't get it, work at it some more. And he didn't really talk about wins and losses, but losses. But what I will tell you is, when we lost, let's go to the practice court. Let's get back to work. And it was literally that simple. Let's get back to work. And there were literally times where I'd win a tournament. All right, we're going to the practice court. So that's what we did.
Otis, how would you describe that coach that you want to be, the coach that our kids need?
The word I'd use is dedicated. And not just dedicated in, I got to get her forehand better, I got to get his serve better. Dedicated in creating, like Mal said, better individuals, better people that can contribute to our society. The things you learn, and you can learn on the tennis court: hard work, dedication, perseverance, tenacity. Those are things that translate into life. It's like Mal said, the chances of getting a college athlete are small. The chances of producing a professional athlete, and not one that turns pro just so they can say they turn pro and don't make any money and lose all their money, is slim to nil. But what we can do is we can install the foundation to create hardworking, good young men and women that will translate to benefits to our society. We can teach them that through hard work, perseverance, and diligence, they can succeed in whatever they try to achieve. And again, I go back to attitude and effort. Just because you won or lost doesn't mean you achieved what you're looking for. The attitude you bring and the effort you're willing to put forth, like Mal said, working hard, and Mal, like winning, sometimes you got away. Losing, we were going to go hit that day. We depending on how I played, Dad might let me eat, but we're going to go hit some serves. You're going to go hit some more balls, or worse, we're going to go to the track because you didn't move fast enough today. So yes, attitude and effort. Those are the things. And our job, I think, is to introduce a lifetime sport, show the way it can translate into everyday life, and to make good people, to help try to shape and form good people. That takes dedication. You have to really care about who you work with and who you're working for and their well-being.
And that is an amazing way to end our hour together today. And I'm really grateful to USTA Texas for being an amazing partner of Positive Coaching Alliance. Really grateful to Mr. Otis Sadler Jr. I did not know the junior part, but we're going to make sure that we address that. No, we're going to address.
I'm the third.
You're the third, so we're going to address that, Mr. Otis Sadler the third. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much.
And Mal, really, really grateful for you to take the time to join us today, for you guys, the examples that you've set, but the commitment that you continue to have for people, for those that are coming up behind you, and making sure that you're passing forward those lessons that have been so entrenched in each of you. And so we're really grateful for both of you to be here. Positive Coaching Alliance, like I said, we're committed to making sure that the culture around youth sports is one that is conducive for each kid to be the best version of themselves, and that includes the coaches and how the examples that they set, the kids, and the ability for them to both learn how to compete but get past mistakes, and then the parents to make sure that you're applauding the right things. Not, as they just said, just because you won the match doesn't mean you actually achieved your goal. And so I think it's important to make sure that we're leaning on the parents too to do better, because all of us can. Around our PCA Sports Combatant Racism Initiative, we're really grateful that you all have been able to join this roundtable, and we look forward to having you at the ones in the future. So we hope everybody has an amazing evening, and hope that you've learned something today. I know I did. So without further ado, I will give you guys the rest of your day, but we're really grateful, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, Mal.
Otis, great to see you. Look forward to talking again.
Good to see you, man.
Peace.
Later.